That evening, Anna Peterson could no longer resist her curiosity and decided to check on Margaret. Peeking into the old woman's house, she saw Margaret sitting alone at the table. Across from her, on the second chair, sat an untouched cup of tea, and the room was filled with an eerie chill. "Who are you talking to, Margaret?" Anna asked cautiously. Margaret slowly raised her eyes. They were filled with tears. "He comes back to me every autumn to ask if I forgive him." And then the chair creaked, and the teacup slid across the table, as if pushed by an unseen hand. Anna gasped and took a step back. Her heart pounded in her chest as the air grew inexplicably colder. She wanted to believe it was a draft, or perhaps her imagination. But deep down, something primal told her the truth was far worse. Margaret stood slowly and walked to the window. Her reflection barely showed in the glass, while behind her, Anna swore she saw the shape of a man, tall, thin, and flickering like smoke. He stood just beside Margaret, his face blurred by shadows. "I never gave him my forgiveness," Margaret whispered. "And now, he's trapped." "Trapped where?" Anna asked, her voice shaking. "Between here and the place he belongs," Margaret said. "And he's not alone. She's with him now, too. And she's angry." Thunder rumbled in the distance, though the skies had been clear just moments before. The lights flickered, and somewhere in the house, a door slammed shut on its own. Anna turned and fled, her steps echoing down the empty street. Behind her, Margaret remained at the window, her eyes glowing faintly with an unnatural light. The house, once quiet, now whispered with voices long gone, but not forgotten. 20 years passed, yet every autumn, Margaret Stevens received a visitor. He always appeared at night, when the moon cast long shadows on the walls. The man bore an uncanny resemblance to Victor. His voice was low, his gaze intense. "You weren't expecting me?" he would ask, his lips curling into a faint, almost sad smile. Margaret would simply nod, rising slowly to prepare tea as if the moment had been rehearsed 1,000 times. The kettle would whistle, the old porcelain cups would clink on their saucers, and the scent of chamomile would drift through the room, mixing with the musty air of forgotten years. She never asked him why he came, and he never explained. But the silence between them was thick, as if every unsaid word weighed more than any sentence ever could. Margaret's hands would tremble slightly as she handed him the cup, and he would take it, though he never drank. They would sit for hours, saying almost nothing, just watching the fire crackle in the hearth, listening to the wind scratching at the windows. Sometimes he would speak, fragments of memory, half-sung lullabies, old jokes from their youth, echoes of a love that had long decayed. Once, he reached out and gently brushed her hand. His touch was ice. "Do you ever think of her?" Margaret had asked once, unable to stop herself. The visitor had gone still, his expression darkened. "She visits me too," he said finally. "But she doesn't ask for forgiveness. She screams." Margaret's eyes welled up with tears, but she said nothing more. Outside, the moon watched in silence, casting its pale glow on the two shadowy figures in the parlor, one living, one not. Victor Johnson, in life, was far from the perfect husband. Charming and courteous, he hid a terrible secret from his wife. He had a mistress, a young nurse working at the hospital where he was being treated. Their affair was passionate, filled with lies and deception. Victor had promised to leave his wife, but never found the courage to do so. The nurse, whose name was Emily, had dreams of a future with him. A cottage by the sea, a family, a new life far from the shadows of betrayal. But Victor wavered. Despite his promises, he returned each night to Margaret, who remained oblivious to the duplicity. The guilt gnawed at him, but not enough to end the affair. Instead, he tried to maintain both lives, weaving elaborate lies that eventually began to fray. Margaret remained unaware for a long time, but one day, while sorting through her husband's old papers, she discovered love letters hidden inside a shoebox in the attic. The handwriting wasn't hers, and the words were filled with longing. Her heart sank with every sentence she read. That very same day, Victor suddenly passed away. The doctors declared it a heart attack. But rumors spread that his death was not so simple. Some whispered that Margaret had found a way to confront him, perhaps not with violence, but with words so cutting, so final, that his heart simply gave out. Others said she had help from something older, something ancient that lingered in the shadows of that house. The old house on the outskirts of town had always intrigued the neighbors. With its faded paint, ivy-covered walls, and creaky porch swing that never stopped moving in the wind, it seemed to belong to another time. Children avoided it, and adults passed by quickly, casting sideways glances as they hurried along the narrow sidewalk. Living there was Margaret Stevens, a woman of advanced age, a widow who carried herself with dignity, yet her eyes always held a deep sorrow. It was said that her husband, Victor Johnson, had died under mysterious circumstances many years ago, and since then she had lived alone, rarely leaving her yard. Some said she had once been a lively woman, known for hosting garden parties and baking the best cherry pie in the neighborhood. Now her garden was overgrown, and the scent of fresh pie had long since vanished. Occasionally, passers-by would catch a glimpse of Margaret through the dusty windows, always sitting in the same armchair by the fireplace, her cat curled up on her lap, staring into the flames as if watching something no one else could see. Mail piled up at her door, and the curtains remained drawn even on the sunniest days. But one chilly autumn evening, Margaret's house was lit up. She was receiving a guest. Her neighbor, Anna Peterson, noticed this as she stepped onto her porch to bring in a blanket that had been airing out. She paused, squinting across the street, her breath fogging in the cold air. A warm glow flickered behind the curtains of Margaret's front room. Anna frowned. It had begun. Again. Every autumn, without fail, Margaret had a mysterious visitor. And every year after his visit, the old woman would withdraw even further from the world, her already quiet demeanor slipping into complete silence. Her skin would go pale, her voice almost vanish, and her hands would tremble even when pouring tea. Some said it was just grief. Others whispered darker things, that the visitor was no longer among the living, and that Margaret was communing with something beyond understanding. Anna shivered and wrapped the blanket tightly around her shoulders. She turned away from the glowing windows. But the image of that flickering light stayed with her long